Imagine this, a group of young men laughing at an old black biker at a dusty gas station. But when one of them steps closer, he notices something on the man's jacket, a small silver badge that reads Vietnam Vet. In that instant, everything changes. Because sometimes the person you mock has survived storms you can't even imagine. And life has a way of teaching that lesson the hard way. Stay with me. This story will humble you. The story opens under the blinding heat of a southern sun. The highway outside rural Georgia stretches endlessly, its surface shimmering like liquid glass. A rusted pickup truck rumbles to a stop at an old gas station, the kind with fading paint, a cracked soda machine and wind chimes that creak against the dry breeze. Inside the truck, a group of young men spill out laughing, full of swagger and noise. They're the kind who speak loud to feel alive. Among them is Darius, 27, with calloused hands and eyes that have seen too much disappointment for his age. He's a mechanic's apprentice, though lately, he shows up to work more out of habit than hope. Life for him feels like an engine that refuses to start. Too many broken parts, not enough reason to fix it. His laughter is sharp, not from joy but from bitterness. As they fill up the tank, the sound of a low, steady rumble cuts through their chatter. Heads turn. A lone biker glides into the station, an old black man on a weather-beaten Harley, its chrome dulled by dust and miles. His jacket is faded, stitched with patches that tell stories no one there bothers to understand. His hands, veined and strong, grip the handlebars like they're part of him. The man dismounts slowly, every movement deliberate, as if he's learned patience through pain. The boys exchange smirks. To them, he looks like a relic, a joke on wheels. One of them snickers. Grandpa still think he in a biker movie. Darius laughs louder than the rest, trying to drown out a voice in his head that tells him to stop. He mocks the man's old Harley, calling it a rust bucket with a death wish. The others howl with approval, and Darius feels for a moment seen. But the old biker doesn't react. He simply wipes the dust off his visor, his movements unhurried. Then he lifts his head and his eyes meet Darius's. There's no anger there, just calm, unshakable authority. It's the kind of look that sees through the noise, through the immaturity, straight into the hollow ache behind it. The laughter falters. The wind stills. For a long second, it's just silence in that stare, a reminder that real strength doesn't need to prove itself. The man nods once quietly and walks inside. Darius feels his throat tighten for reasons he can't explain. The echo of that calm, unspoken dignity lingers like heat on the road. A warning, or maybe a lesson, emotional tone. Beneath the surface mockery lies the first crack in Darius's pride, an uneasy stirring of guilt he can't yet name. Moral undertone. Strength isn't loud. True power carries itself in silence and self-control. As the old man steps out of the station, the late afternoon sun paints him in gold and shadow. The jingling of the doorbell fades behind him as he walks with a slow, grounded rhythm, like someone who has seen too much of life to rush through any of it. His boots crunch against gravel, steady, certain. The laughter from Darius's group still hangs in the air, but it's thinner now, forced, almost awkward. The old man doesn't say a word. He just brushes the dust off his jacket, slings a leg over his Harley, and adjusts his gloves with the same patience he's shown all along. But as he turns slightly toward the light, Darius notices something glint on the front of his jacket, a small metallic badge, scratched but dignified. The letters catch the sun. Vietnam Vet. Below it, a row of dull ribbons stitched in perfect order, bronze, red, and green, their colors muted by time. Darius doesn't know what they mean, but they speak louder than any words could. They whisper of survival, pain, and years that refuse to be forgotten. His throat goes dry. He forces a smirk, his voice uneven as he calls out, "That real?" The question sounds like a joke, but it isn't. It's curiosity tangled in guilt. The old man turns his head slowly, his expression unreadable. His eyes, deep, weary, but still burning with life, meet Darius's. For a moment, everything around them falls away. The road, the laughter, even the wind. Then the man speaks softly, his voice raspy but heavy with truth. "You weren't there, son, so you wouldn't understand." It's not anger. It's something far deeper. Disappointment mixed with forgiveness, a kind of sadness that comes from knowing how cruel ignorance can be. The Harley growls to life, breaking the stillness. The old man pulls out of the lot, his figure shrinking against the open road until all that's left is the echo of his engine and a swirl of dust drifting in the fading light. The boys chuckle half-heartedly, but Darius doesn't join. He can't. His laughter has turned to silence. He stares at the empty road, the metallic badge seared into his memory like a scar he didn't earn but suddenly feels responsible for. For the first time in a long time, Darius feels small, not humiliated but humbled. Because he realizes that while he was trying to look like a man, the old biker had already lived through the kind of storms that turn boys into legends. Emotional tone. The shift from arrogance to quiet remorse, the first crack in Darius's ego. Moral undertone. You never know the battles someone has fought just to stand before you. Respect isn't about age or appearance, but survival and strength. Darius's story unfolds like a long shadow stretching across his past. His father, once a strong construction worker with hands rough from years of labor, vanished when Darius was just 12. One night he simply didn't come home. No note, no goodbye. Just the hum of silence and a door left ajar. For weeks, Darius kept glancing at the driveway, expecting to see his father's old truck rumble back. But it never did. The man who once told him, "Real men don't quit," had quit on his own family. His mother, Lena, carried the weight alone. She worked days at a diner and nights cleaning offices. Her hands always tired, her eyes always soft. Darius loved her fiercely, but grew to resent the world that broke her down. Watching her struggle while others thrived hardened something inside him. He learned that life didn't reward kindness and it punished it. So he built walls. Thick ones. By the time he turned 20, laughter had become his weapon. He mocked, teased, and provoked because it was safer than feeling small. Strength in his mind meant control, and control meant never letting anyone see you bleed. The more he pretended to be tough, the more invisible his pain became. Now at 27, Darius works at a dusty auto shop on the outskirts of town. He's good with engines. Machines make sense to him. They break, you fix them. People, though? People stay broken. The smell of oil and steel has become his comfort. The noise of clanging tools a distraction from the silence he carries home every night. But ever since that day at the gas station, peace doesn't come easy. Sometimes he hears the low rumble of a Harley passing on the highway, and something tightens in his chest. Guilt, curiosity, or maybe shame. That old man's face keeps flashing before his eyes, calm, steady, unbothered. Late one night, Darius lies awake, his mother's old words replaying like a song he finally understands. You don't measure a man by his looks, baby, but by the pain he survived. He used to laugh at that, back when he thought survival meant winning every argument. But now he knows. It's about carrying your scars with grace. Emotional tone, introspective and humanizing, peeling back Darius's armor to reveal his loneliness and confusion. Moral undertone. Many who disrespect others do so to hide their own hurt. Cruelty is often the echo of an unloved heart. The storm came without warning, a heavy, angry sky that split open with rain and thunder. Darius gripped the steering wheel of his old pickup, the wipers struggling to keep up as the road disappeared beneath sheets of water. It had been a long day at the shop, his clothes soaked in grease, his mind heavier than usual. He wasn't thinking about much, just getting home, maybe heating a can of soup, maybe forgetting the world again. But then he saw it, smoke twisting into the air like a dark signal. His heart jolted. As he slowed down, headlights cut through the storm, revealing a wreck. A car crumpled against a tree, fire sparking under the hood. And beside it, lying in the mud and rain, was a motorcycle, an old Harley, familiar and heartbreakingly still. Time stopped. Darius jumped out before he could think. The rain drenched him instantly, cold and blinding, but adrenaline drowned out the fear. He sprinted toward the wreck, his boots sinking into the wet ground. That's when he saw him. The old biker, pinned under a fallen signpost, blood seeping through his torn sleeve. His eyes fluttered open, cloudy with pain but sharp enough to recognize the young man before him. You again? The biker rasped, voice low but calm, even now. Darius froze for half a second. Guilt, memory, shame, all of it crashing back. Then he dropped to his knees and started pulling at the heavy metal. Hold on, I got you, he shouted over the storm. His muscles burned, his palms tore open, but he didn't stop. Finally, with one last grunt, he lifted the signpost just enough to drag the old man free. Flames roared behind them, the wreck ready to explode. Darius ripped off his jacket and threw it over the biker's shoulders. His hands trembled. "I'm sorry, man. For that day. I was stupid." The biker looked at him, eyes full of something deeper than pain, something almost proud. "You got heart, son," he said softly. "You just lost your map." Darius didn't know why, but tears mixed with the rain. The storm raged around them, but for the first time it didn't feel like chaos. It felt like cleansing. Emotional tone, visceral, and redemptive. The storm mirrors Darius's inner turmoil finally breaking open. Moral undertone. Life has eye. A way of circling back, giving us the chance to right what we once broke, if we have the courage to act. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and rain-soaked air. The storm had passed, but Darius still felt it inside him. The thunder, the guilt, the strange pull of fate. He sat in the hallway for nearly an hour before finally walking in. The room was quiet except for the slow beeping of a heart monitor and the hum of fluorescent lights. There he was, the old biker. No leather jacket now, no roaring Harley. Just an aging man wrapped in white sheets, his arm bandaged and his eyes half closed in rest. But even lying there, he radiated a quiet dignity, the kind Darius had never seen before. A nurse glanced up. "You his son?" she asked. Darius hesitated. "No, ma'am. Just someone who owes him." When the nurse left, Darius pulled up a chair. He didn't know what to say. For a long while, he just watched the old man breathe. Eventually, the biker stirred, opening one eye. "Didn't expect to see you again," he said, voice gravelly but calm. Darius swallowed hard. "Didn't expect to be here," he admitted. Mr. Jefferson, that was his name as Darius later learned, gave a slow nod. "Name's Harlan. Harlan Jefferson. Been riding since I came home from a war that never ended." He paused, his gaze drifting somewhere far beyond the room. "Lost my brother out there. Lost half my platoon too, so every year I ride down south to visit him, remind him I'm still here." Silence fell again, heavy but peaceful. Then softly, Harlan added, "You boys laugh at what you don't understand. That laughter's just fear trying to sound brave." Darius felt the words sink deep. He looked down at his hands, still bandaged from the rescue, and murmured, "I said some things I shouldn't have. I was just being stupid, mister." Jefferson gave a small, almost fatherly smile. "I've been called worse, son. But I hope one day you'll find something worth fighting for. 'Cause until then, you'll keep fighting yourself." Darius blinked back tears. No lecture. No anger, just wisdom. And grace. The kind of forgiveness that doesn't erase guilt, but transforms it. Emotional tone, quiet and intimate. The storm outside replaced by calm reflection and unspoken healing. Moral undertone. Forgiveness. From those who've endured the most, holds the power to awaken those who've lost their way. Weeks slipped quietly into months, and what began as a single hospital visit became a ritual of healing for both men. Every few days after work, Darius would show up at the rehab center, sometimes with food from a diner, sometimes just to sit. Mr. Jefferson never asked for anything, but he always welcomed him with that same patient nod, the kind that said more than words ever could. When Harlan was discharged, Darius helped him settle back home, a small weathered house at the edge of town, its garage filled with the scent of oil, metal, and memories. Inside sat the Harley, its frame bent and scarred from the accident. Darius offered to fix it. Harlan hesitated at first, but finally said, "You break it, you fix it. That's the deal." And so, the healing shifted from words to work. Each afternoon, Darius came by after the shop closed. They spent hours side by side, grease on their hands, music low in the background. The kind of old blues that carried both pain and peace. Between the hum of wrenches and the clink of bolts, they shared fragments of life. Stories of Harlan's youth, of brothers who never came home. Darius's confessions about his father, his fears, his anger. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Harlan leaned back in his chair and looked at him. "You got anger, boy," he said, voice low but firm. "But that fire can build or burn. You choose which." The words stayed with Darius long after he drove home that night. Slowly, he began to shift. The walls he'd built around himself began to crack, not through grand moments but small, quiet choices. He started showing up early to work. He stopped laughing at others' mistakes. When younger mechanics were picked on, he stepped in. It wasn't about proving himself anymore. It was about becoming someone worth respect. As spring came, the Harley gleamed once again. When Harlan finally started it up, its engine purred steady and proud. Darius smiled, not out of pride, but gratitude. Somewhere in the hum of that rebuilt machine he'd found his peace. Emotional tone, gentle and redemptive. A steady rise from guilt to grace, grounded in human connection. Moral undertone. True transformation isn't taught through sermons, but through example, patience and love that asks for nothing in return. The morning of the funeral dawned gray and still, the kind of silence that feels too heavy to break. The air smelled faintly of rain and engine oil as rows of motorcycles lined the small churchyard, chrome glinting beneath the clouds. Men and women in leather stood in quiet formation, old faces weathered by time, stories and battles both fought and survived. Each of them had come to honor one of their own, Harlan Jefferson. Darius stood a few steps back, unsure where he belonged. He wasn't a veteran. He wasn't family. But as the pastor spoke of courage, loyalty, and brotherhood, Darius felt something stir inside him, something deep and unshakable. When the engines roared together in one long, thunderous salute, it was as if the heavens themselves paused to listen. After the service, as people began to disperse, a tall man with silver hair and a steady gaze approached Darius. His jacket bore the same faded patches Darius once laughed at. In his palm was something small, glinting softly in the muted light, a silver badge that read Vietnam Vet. "He wanted you to have this," the man said simply. "Said you'd know what to do with it." Darius's throat tightened. He took the badge with shaking hands, feeling the cool metal press into his skin. It was more than a piece of history. It was a story, a burden, a legacy. Proof that strength isn't in the noise of pride, but in the quiet of endurance. That evening, Darius returned to Harlan's garage. The Harley sat there waiting, polished, perfect, alive. He slipped on the old man's worn gloves, mounted the bike, and turned the key. The engine came to life with a low growl, steady and sure. As he rode down the open road, the wind rushed against his face, tears blurring the horizon. Every mile carried memory, laughter in the shop, lessons in patience, the weight of forgiveness. He wasn't the same man who once mocked a stranger at a gas station. That boy was gone, burned away in storms, rebuilt in oil and wisdom. Emotional tone, quietly powerful and redemptive, a final farewell that feels like a beginning. Moral. Undertone. Respect isn't demanded or declared, it's lived, earned, and passed down from one soul to another. Months later, the world felt different, not because it had changed, but because Darius had. The old shop he used to work in could no longer hold the man he'd become. So he took a risk. He poured his savings, sweat, and sleepless nights into a run-down building on the edge of town, a forgotten space with cracked windows and a leaky roof. To anyone else, it looked like another mechanic's shop waiting to fail. But to Darius, it was something sacred, a promise he intended to keep. When the paint dried and the lights flickered on, a new sign hung proudly over the door: Jefferson's Garage. Beneath it, in bold letters, the words that defined everything he'd learned: respect is earned, not enforced. The first few months were rough. Tools were borrowed more than returned, engines stalled more than they started, and some days the bills didn't balance. But the place had life, real, gritty human life. Darius began hiring young men from the neighborhood, kids with sharp tongues and broken dreams, kids who reminded him of the man he used to be. They came in skeptical, testing boundaries with swagger and jokes. When they cursed too loud or mocked each other, Darius never yelled. He'd just smile, wipe his hands on a rag and say, "You got heart, son. Don't lose your map." The line always stopped them cold. Some would roll their eyes. Others would go quiet. But over time they began to understand. He taught them about engines, patience, and pride in one's work. But more than that, he taught them how to stand tall without stepping on others. The shop became more than a business. It became a refuge, a school of second chances. Above his workbench, pinned to the wall, hung Harlan Jefferson's silver Vietnam vet badge. Every morning as sunlight streamed through the window and caught its edge, it gleamed like a small, steady flame, a reminder of where it all began. Darius would sometimes glance up at it and whisper, "Thank you, old man." Emotional tone, quietly triumphant and deeply human, a conclusion filled with warmth, gratitude, and renewal. Moral takeaway: true respect isn't born from fear or authority. It grows from compassion, humility, and the courage to change and then help others do the same. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.